But the game that I'm most looking forward to, and that I put in the headline, is LSU and Florida. LSU and Florida is so wild to me and so interesting for a number of reasons, not the least of which is we're in the middle of a pandemic, COVID numbers are spiking, and we got Dan Mullen swearing up and down that he needs 90,000 people at the Swamp and basically daring his administration to not let them do it by invoking the governor. Now, the governor doesn't run the University of Florida. University of Florida president runs Florida. And while they have been open for business in the state of Florida, and I don't know that it's going to come down to their word versus his or one edict or another, I thought it was really interesting that Dan Mullen decided to throw that gauntlet down. Because why would you? Especially after you just took a loss at Kyle Field to Texas A&M. A loss that many of us didn't think you should have taken in the first place. Because not unlike Alabama and Ole Miss, in a game where they score 38 points, I feel like they should win the game. Florida had an 11-point lead going in the second half. They put up 500 yards of offense. Like Kyle Trask threw for over 300 yards. And Kyle Pitts was a force. And Kadarius Toney had 7 catches for 92 yards. Ty Grantham and his engaged 8 Madden defense probably did him in. You run that against LSU, they're likely to beat you. But the thing about LSU is Bo Pelini's coaching the defense. And it's gotten so bad at LSU that Ed Orgeron has told Bo Pelini to fix it. I don't care if you run one defense and we run one coverage, run it right. Those were his words. And that is the Ed Orgeron that many of us all know to be the dude, right? That's the guy that was at Ole Miss. That's the guy that was coaching those first couple of years at LSU. That's the guy who was on the hot seat. And knowing that you're in this transition year where I was very clear that LSU's going to catch 5 losses, and LSU fans kept wanting to show up here to tell me I was crazy and to call me all sorts of names, now you're looking at not just 5, but probably 6, because you took an L to a Missouri team that you should have never taken, even if it is in Columbia. You had 4 opportunities to win this thing on the goal line, and you failed all 4 times. It doesn't matter that Miles Brennan and Terrace Marshall are out there cooking Missouri's defense if LSU's defense is going to get cooked by a freshman quarterback and Eli Drinkwitz in his first year at Missouri. That ain't going to cut it. Now, if you ask me whether or not Kyle Trask in Florida can do that against LSU, I'm going to tell you indubitably, right? Because Kyle Trask and Florida have figured this thing out in that they should score every time they have the ball. And by score, I mean get 6. They're that good offensively. And if it wasn't for Todd Grantham, perhaps they'd be a little bit better defensively because 2020 Florida looks a lot like 2019 LSU. The difference is they caught a loss against a really good Texas A&M team, or at least a good Texas A&M team, which leads me to this conversation about the SEC West and how it is all sorts of discombobulated and all over the place. So, I want to get into that. First, I want to check out who's in the chat. See, Becca Lou says, it's going to be a long season for my LSU Tigers. You want to keep the faith, but MSU and Mizzou, come on, man. It's a good observation. Bo Pelini, inexplicably, running man-to-man defense against KJ Costello as he continues to carve you up. Meanwhile, you see an Arkansas team that's able to just kind of play defense in a 4-2-5. Run zone. Stop people. Bo Pelini might want to put some zone into his 4-3. Marcus Anderson. Georgia going to beat Alabama. I think they might have some tricks up their sleeve. What if JT, the deep threat Daniels, starts the game after Alabama prepared for Bennett? I don't think it's going to matter either way. I don't. JT Daniels is a 5-star quarterback and he's good, but does he give you that much more upside? I'd need to see it first. And if he gave you that much more upside, I like to think that you'd start him against Tennessee, which is a good defense. Might even be a defense that's on par with Alabama, right? If you had it to go, then just run him out there. As opposed to Kirby Smart coming from the school of, I don't give a damn who the quarterback is, just don't turn the ball over. That's a man that decided to ride with Jake Fromm, even as he had Justin Fields on the roster. That tells you what Kirby Smart thinks about the quarterback position. See, Clemson, Georgia, Utah. Yeah, y'all. Some of these observations, y'all need to work on these. Y'all need to work on these. Okay, Brodney Poole is saying the OC at Ole Miss is from the Art Briles football tree, the O-line coach, and the tight ends coach also. Yeah, so that's a very good point. Jeff Lebby being the offensive coordinator at Ole Miss coming out of the Briles coaching tree. And I've been really critical of guys without the last name Briles running the veer and shoot, but it seems to be working to a degree. Now, I think some of that is Jeff Lebby marrying the offense with Lane Kiffin forcing that philosophy to take hold. But I believe the offensive line coach is Randy Scott, and that dude makes it go because knowing that he was the offensive line coach when Briles had it cooking in Baylor, and knowing that Phil Montgomery was the offensive coordinator at that time, and you saw separation of those two people, Tulsa hadn't been all the way good offensively, and I think a lot of it has to do with how they coach those offensive lines to play ball, because it's not necessarily how you traditionally coach offensive line. And I think that's the thing that gets missed when we start talking about the Briles offense and how they run that veer and shoot, because it's deadly, and I love the way that they do it, but also the way that they're deploying the tight end and Kenny Yeboah, who transferred in from Temple, is different than what they were doing at Baylor as well. So, yeah, I'm with you on that, Brodney. And by the way, that is Brodney Poole, for those of y'all that are asking. We went through this once before. Cool dude being on the channel. But I think that's a good observation. Imagine UGA pulls reverse and Bama game plans for Stetson. You already said that. Why are we still talking about JT Daniels being some sort of change agent here? You're undefeated, Georgia. Why are you messing with this? Like, I'm not even the dude that was on the Stetson Bennett train. I'm making jokes about him during the preseason as getting to wear a jersey. But now he's got the job. So why do you want to take the job from him when it's working? If it wasn't working, I would be with you on this. But you don't need him to win you the football game. You just need him not to lose it for you because you're getting 6 from your defense on general principle. Monty Rice, Eric Stokes, Richard LeCount, they're out here balling. Azeez Ojulari is balling. Why are you messing with this? You're a defensive football team. If you got to go get buckets, we can have that conversation. But right now, you ain't got to go get buckets. Right now, all you got to do is play defense because it's almost like the 2000 Baltimore Ravens out there. It doesn't matter who's on the offense. It only matters that you play defense. Stop playing with this. Let's see. Kellen Kamer, what's up, man? Miles Brennan has been better than expected. Bo Pelini has managed to produce an FCS defense with 4- and 5-star talent. I disagree with that. I believe that Miles Brennan has been good. I disagree that Bo Pelini's put out an FCS defense because Derek Stingley Jr. is still there, and y'all wanted Jabril Cox. Remember that? There are a lot of us that think Jabril Cox gets drafted in the first round, regardless of what the hell happens with LSU's defense. A lot of us believe in Elias Ricks, Cordell Flott. These dudes that y'all know can ball. And you're trying to lay this at Bo Pelini's feet. And I get that. I understand. He's the guy in charge. But I don't think that they're running an FCS defense. I just think that they're new. I think that nobody got an opportunity to coach up their philosophy. And the coaches that have been doing the best job have been the ones that have embraced, hey, my playbook's probably going to be 3 pages. Okay? I just need them to be able to run these plays. Everything else is fundamentals. Everything else is blocking, tackling. That's what that is, right? Bo Pelini wants to run his defense. I don't fault him for that. But his players can't run the defense because they don't know the defense. And you're trying to run man-to-man knowing that you think you can just put your athletes out there and let them go. Turns out that's not what you can do. You got a lot of young kids that don't know what they're doing out there and have to actually identify their sight adjustments and get used to the pattern matching idea because a lot of these dudes don't run pattern matching in high school, right? That's why you're running man-to-man. You're just saying stick with your man. But when you're running crossing routes all the time, that's a really difficult thing to do, especially when you see as many natural pick plays as you will against an air raid because the air raid is not new to the SEC. It's new to this SEC. But Mike Leach was running that at Kentucky, and he ran it so well at Kentucky that Bob Stoops, who was defense coordinator at Florida, took the job at Oklahoma and went to Hal Mumme and said, can I have your offensive coordinator? Because he's the only guy in the country that's giving me fits. So Mike Leach ends up at Oklahoma, Texas Tech, and then on to Washington State, and now at Mississippi State. But outside of that, Iowa Wesleyan ran air raid in 1989 with Hal Mumme and Mike Leach. Mike Leach skipped out on going to pass the bar. They're going to law school so he could take a stipend to coach Iowa Wesleyan football. Now, the premise behind running the air raid is exactly that you want to be able to beat up on an LSU team. When they have more talent than you, the only thing you can depend on is math. So you want to run more wide receivers to one space than they can cover. You want to force them to actually play sound football. Because if you let them out-athlete you, they will win. That's why you see such quick game from the air raid. It is devised so that shorter, slower dudes have an opportunity to try to win, right? This is one of the reasons why we look at zone in basketball. We say zone is for cowards. We say zone is for cowards because a lot of those dudes don't actually have to match up. They never learn how to play this game with their chest. They learn to depend on the principles of the defense.